Next we have, representing the little town of London, representing London, we have Steve Bustin with Writing Yourself, a great introduction. Steve Bustin.
Thanks, Roger. That was a great introduction. What's the worst introduction you've ever had? And was it your fault? Now, I've had a couple of bad ones in my time. One last year, I was introduced with the line, "Please welcome the fruit in the suit, Steve Bustin." I walked on thinking, sort of funny, sort of offensive, and not completely true. So I walked to the microphone and said, "Look, for reasons of transparency, I would just like to point out, I'm not actually wearing a suit. This is a blazer and chinos." But it made me realise what a privilege it is as speakers that we get to write our own introductions and the problems it can cause when you let somebody else write it for you. Now, I think there are three traps that we tend to fall into when we write our own introductions. The first one is that we tend to use the language, the words and phrases that we like, that we feel comfortable with, and that we understand. Whereas, of course, what we should be doing is using the language that the audience understands. And I'll give you an example. I used to work in public relations, PR. When I introduced myself as such, I assumed everybody knew what PR was. And then people would sidle up to me afterwards and say, "Steve, PR, what do you actually do?" And I thought, okay, they're not getting this. So I changed my introduction. I help you get your name in the papers. People got that because I was talking their language. Now, quick straw poll. How many of you use the words creative or passionate in your introduction? Yeah, a few of you. Now, I'm afraid to say, I think you're falling into trap number 2, lapsing into cliché. Words like creative and passionate are becoming overused. They're becoming meaningless. One tip, if you ever hear a word or phrase used on The Apprentice, it's a cliché. Drop it. So, what you need to do, if you're talking about being creative and passionate, the problem is you're not. If you have to tell me you're creative or passionate, then I clearly can't tell for myself. I should be able to tell the moment you walk into a room, the moment you walk onto the stage, about your creativity and your passion. If you have to point it out, sorry, you're not. Now, the third trap that I think people fall into when they're writing their introduction is they don't differentiate themselves. They don't set it out what it is that makes them different from their next speaker. They don't answer the question, why should I book you and not that person over there? Little exercise for you. When you get back to your computer, go to the homepage of your website, copy the text, and paste it into a Word document. Then use the find and replace function to strip out every mention of you and your business and replace it with that of your closest competitor. I can almost guarantee you will find you have just described your closest competitor in glowing and accurate terms. And it's because you haven't differentiated yourself. You haven't told me why I should book you and not that speaker next door. So my question to you is, how are you going to make sure your introduction is a great introduction? How are you going to make sure you're talking the audience's language, you're not lapsing into cliché, and you're differentiating yourself? Now, I started by saying I'd had a couple of examples of bad introductions. The other one was earlier this year. I was in Birmingham. It was in a theatre, and I was stood in the wings waiting to go on. The introduction was done in voiceover, and I heard the compere say, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your next speaker, Barbara Smallbones." Now, I don't object to being called Barbara. God knows I've been called worse. What I objected to was the fact that the compere was stood next to me as he said it, holding the script for my introduction in his hand. The thing I learned from that was that sometimes you're not in complete control of your own introduction. You've just got to go with the flow. Anyway, I suspect my time is about up, so I have been Barbara Smallbones, the fruit not in the suit. Thank you for listening.
Steve Bustin! Well done, Steve.